5 years had passed since the liberation of Earth. Admiral Grace Anderson stood in the observation deck of her flagship and looked out at the galaxy that now belonged to humanity. The view was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Thousands of human ships moved between the stars like silver fish, swimming through an ocean of darkness. Grace was old enough to remember the early days of the war, when every battle was uncertain and every victory came at a cost. Now the fighting was over. The Zephyrian Confederation had surrendered completely. The galaxy had a new master, and that master was humanity. "Admiral," said Captain Peter Shaw as he joined her at the window, "the final reports are in from the film. Outer systems. The last of the rebel worlds have accepted our terms." Grace nodded. The conquest had taken 5 years, but it could have been much faster. Humanity had chosen to be careful, to give every alien world a chance to surrender peacefully. Most had been smart enough to accept. Those that refused no longer existed. "How many worlds are under our control now?" Grace asked. 3,047, Peter replied. "We rule over 12 different alien species and about 2 trillion beings. The old Confederation never controlled this much territory." Grace smiled. The aliens had thought they were the masters of the galaxy, but they had only controlled the easy parts. Humans had pushed deeper into space, conquering worlds that the Confederation had never even found. The galaxy was much larger than the aliens had ever imagined. On Earth, President Karen Foster walked through the gardens that had once been Supreme Overlord Kethmer's palace. The alien structure was gone now, replaced by trees and flowers that grew from soil made rich by 3,000 years of alien technology. It was strange to think that this peaceful place had once been the center of galactic tyranny. Karen had been elected by the human people to lead their new empire. It was a job she had never wanted, but someone had to make the hard decisions. Someone had to decide what to do with 3,000 conquered worlds and 2 trillion alien subjects. "Madam President," said Colonel Steve Johnson as he approached. Through the garden. "The Zephyrian delegation is here for their weekly meeting," Karen sighed. Even in defeat, the aliens wanted to negotiate, to find some way to return to the old system where they were in charge. They could not understand that. The galaxy had changed forever. "Send them in," she said. The Zephyrian representatives were led by former Admiral Vextar. The old alien looked tired and defeated. His once proud military uniform was replaced by simple civilian clothes. Behind him walked other former Confederation leaders, all of them struggling to accept their new reality. President Foster, Vextar, said with a bow, "We come to discuss the treatment of our people on the colony worlds." "Your people are treated fairly," Karen replied. "They have food, shelter, work, and safety. They live better now than they did under your old empire." This was true. The human administration was efficient and just. Alien civilians who followed the laws were left alone to live their lives. Those who caused trouble were relocated to worlds where they could not harm others. It was much kinder than what the Confederation had done to species they conquered. "But we are not free," Vextar said. Karen looked at the old alien with something like pity. "Freedom is earned, not given. Your people had 3,000 years to learn wisdom. Instead, you built an empire based on fear and oppression. Now you live under the rule of those you tried to destroy." Dr. Alex Murphy was working in his laboratory, deep inside the restored Earth, when the message came through. Alex was humanity's chief scientist, a man responsible for pushing human technology even further beyond what seemed possible. "Alex," said General Williams over the communicator, "how is the Deep Space Project coming along?" Alex smiled as he looked at the calculations on his screen. "Better than expected, Kate. The new engines are ready for testing. We can reach other galaxies now. This was humanity's greatest secret. While the galaxy celebrated their victory over the Confederation, human scientists had been working on something much bigger. They had built ships that could travel between galaxies as easily as the old colony ships had once traveled between stars. "When do we launch the first expedition?" Kate asked. "Next month," Alex replied. "We've identified 7 nearby galaxies that show signs of intelligent life. It's time to see what else is out there." On the bridge of a massive colony ship floating in the darkness beyond the galactic rim, Captain Julie Parker checked final preparations for departure. Behind her ship, dozens of others were loaded with colonists, scientists, and soldiers. They were going to places no human had ever been, to claim new worlds in distant galaxies. "All ships report ready for jump," said her navigation officer. Julie thought about her ancestors who had fled Earth in ships like this 3,000 years ago. They had been refugees then, running from a powerful enemy. Now their descendants were conquerors, setting out to claim new galaxies for humanity. "Begin jump sequence," Julie ordered. "Let's go see what's out there." The ships vanished into hyperspace, carrying humanity's children to distant stars. Behind them, the conquered galaxy continued to adapt to its new rulers. In the halls of the restored United Nations building in New York, representatives from dozens of human worlds and hundreds of alien species met to discuss the future. The debates were long and sometimes heated, but they were peaceful. War was no longer an option in the human dominion. Commander Amy Clark, descendant of the young lieutenant who had served with Captain Morrison so long ago, stood before the assembly. "And read the new galactic constitution." It was a document that promised justice and order to all beings, human and alien alike. "The human dominion exists to ensure peace and prosperity for all civilized species," Amy read. "We welcome those who come in friendship. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We stand against those who would return to the old ways of conquest and oppression." The alien delegates listened in silence. Some of them still hated their human masters, but they had learned not to show it. Others had come to appreciate the stability and fairness of human rule. A few had even joined the human military and government, proving their loyalty to the new order. As the session ended, Amy looked out at the delegates returning to their home worlds. They would carry the message of human rule to every corner of the galaxy. Some would comply willingly. Others would resist and face the consequences. Dr. Helen Wright sat in her office and reviewed the reports from the exploration fleets. Humanity had found other galaxies full of life, full of civilizations that had never heard of Earth or the old Confederation. Some of these alien empires were peaceful. Others were as aggressive and warlike as the Zephyrians had been. "It looks like we'll have more work to do," Helen said to herself with a smile. The universe was vast and full of dangers. But humanity had learned hard lessons during their 3,000 years of exile. They had become something that could not be conquered, could not be destroyed, and would not be stopped. The age of human dominance had begun, and it would last forever. In the darkness between galaxies, new colony ships were already building new worlds. On Earth, children played in gardens that grew over the ruins of alien palaces. And in the depths of space, human scientists worked on technologies that would make their species even more powerful. The descendants of refugees had become the masters of everything they could see, and they were just getting started. The alarm bells rang across Victory Prime at exactly dawn. Supreme Overlord Kethmer was drinking his morning tea when his aide burst into the palace with news that would change everything. "My lord," the aide gasped, "massive ships have appeared. In our solar system. Hundreds of them. Our sensors cannot identify their design or origin." Kethmer dropped his teacup. It shattered on the marble floor that had been built over the bones of old New York. For 3,000 years, no enemy had dared to approach Earth. The planet was protected by the most powerful defense fleet in the galaxy. "Show me," Tefmayer demanded. The holographic display in his command room lit up with an image that made his blood turn cold. The ships were enormous, black as space itself, and shaped like nothing he had ever seen. They moved with perfect coordination, like a pack of hunting beasts surrounding their prey. Admiral Sam Brown stood on the bridge of his flagship, ascendant, and looked down at the world his ancestors had called home. Earth looked different now. The aliens had changed its oceans from blue to green. Strange cities floated in the sky, connected by silver bridges. But underneath all the alien construction, Sam could still see the shape of the continents his people had once called home. "All ships, begin bombardment of orbital defenses," Sam ordered. His voice was calm, but inside he felt 3,000 years of anger burning like fire. The human fleet opened fire with weapons that the aliens could not understand. Beams of twisted light reached out and touched the alien defense stations. The stations did not explode. They simply stopped existing, as if reality itself had decided they should not be their dot in space around Earth. General Vexner commanded the Confederation's finest fleet. 2,000 warships, armed with the most advanced weapons known to alien science. He had been confident until 30 seconds ago. "Sir," his weapons officer said with fear in his voice, "our plasma cannons are not penetrating their shields. Our missiles are disappearing before they reach the targets." Vexner watched in horror as one of his largest battleships was touched by a strange blue light. The ship folded in on itself like paper and vanished. Not destroyed, not broken apart, simply gone as if it had never existed. "All ships, retreat to defensive positions around the planet," he ordered. But even as he spoke, he knew it was hopeless. His fleet was fighting ghosts with weapons made of nightmares. On the surface of Earth, Major General Julie Parker led the first human soldiers to set foot on their homeworld in 3,000 years. Her troops wore armor that made them look like walking shadows. They moved through the alien cities like death itself, silent and unstoppable. "Remember," Julie said into her communicator, "civilians who surrender are to be spared. Anyone who fights dies. This is our world, and we're taking it back." The alien soldiers tried to resist. They had energy weapons and force shields. They had trained for decades and believed themselves to be the finest warriors in the galaxy. None of it mattered. The humans fought with technology that bent the rules of physics. Their armor could not be pierced. Their weapons could kill from miles away. Worst of all, they seemed to know exactly where every alien would be before the alien knew it themselves. Captain Ben Miller kicked down the door of an alien command bunker. Inside, a dozen Zephyrian officers huddled behind overturned tables, shooting at him with their plasma rifles. The energy beams hit his armor and simply disappeared, absorbed by materials that existed in multiple dimensions at once. "Surrender. Now and you will live," Ben said in perfect Zephyrian language. "Keep fighting and join your friends." Around the bunker lay the bodies of alien soldiers who had chosen to fight. Ben felt no satisfaction in killing them. These aliens had not been alive when Earth fell, but they had lived on his world, built their cities over human graves, and called themselves the masters of the galaxy. That was enough. 3 of the aliens dropped their weapons and raised their hands. The others kept shooting. Ben's rifle hummed once. The 3 who surrendered lived. The others did not dot deep in the underground tunnels beneath what had once been Paris. Dr. Kevin Turner was already beginning the restoration of Earth. He carried devices that could break down alien materials at the molecular level and rebuild them as forests, rivers, and mountains. "Beginning atmospheric restoration in Sector 7, he reported to General Williams. "The alien cities are dissolving as planned. Earth's original ecosystem should be restored within 72 hours. Kevin, had dreamed of this moment his entire life. He had been born on a colony ship between the stars, but his ancestors had filled his childhood with stories of Earth's blue skies and green forests. Now he would see them with his own eyes. Above ground, the floating alien cities were falling. Like rain, not crashing, just gently settling back to Earth as the technology that held them up was converted into soil and trees. It was like watching a magic trick, but Kevin knew it was just human science that had advanced beyond alien understanding. Supreme. Overlord Kethmer stood in his palace and watched his empire crumble. His defense fleets were destroyed. His cities were melting away. His soldiers were surrendering or dying. But the worst part was the message that appeared on every communication device across the planet. A human woman appeared on the screen. She was tall and strong, with eyes like blue fire. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who had never known defeat. "I am General Kate Williams of the Human Dominion," she said. 3,000 years ago, your people drove my ancestors from this world. You thought you had destroyed us. You were wrong." Kethmer felt fear creep up his spine like ice water. He recognized something in this human's eyes, something he had seen in the faces of human soldiers during the old war. They had never given up, never accepted defeat, even when their cities burned and their fleets were broken. "We have returned to reclaim what was always ours," Kate continued. "Your reign over this galaxy ends today. Those who surrender will be treated fairly. Those who resist will be destroyed. You have 1 hour to make your choice." The transmission ended, leaving Kethmer alone in his crumbling palace. Outside, he could hear the sounds of battle growing closer. His guards were running away. His officials had already fled. He walked to his window and looked out at the world he had ruled for so long. The alien cities were gone, replaced by green forests and blue rivers. In the distance, he could see human ships landing, carrying colonists who would make Earth their home once again. Kethmer had lived for over 3,000 years. He had seen the rise and fall of empires, the birth and death of civilizations. But he had never seen anything like this. The humans had not just survived their exile. They had become something far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. As the first human soldiers entered his palace, Kethmer made his choice. He would surrender and accept whatever fate the humans chose for him. The age of alien dominance was over. Humanity had returned, and they intended to stay. The first cargo ship disappeared on a Tuesday. Captain Zietmer of the Zephyrian Trade Guild was carrying rare metals from the mining worlds to the core systems when his ship simply vanished from all sensors. No distress signal, no wreckage, no trace that it had ever existed. Admiral Vextar, now old and gray, but still ruler of the Confederation fleet, read the report in his office on Earth. The planet humans had once called home was now a paradise of alien architecture. Golden towers reached toward the sky, and silver bridges connected floating cities. The oceans were cleaner, the air was pure, and everything was perfect according to Zephyrian standards. "One missing ship is not unusual," Vextar told his aide. "Space is dangerous. Pirates still exist in the outer systems." But the disappearances did not stop. Within a month, 12 cargo ships had vanished. Then military patrol boats started going missing. Then entire space stations went silent, their crews simply gone as if they had never existed. Admiral Chun Zhao smiled as he watched another alien outpost disappear from his ship's display screen. Chun commanded the human stealth fleet, invisible ships that could strike without warning and vanish like ghosts. His vessels used technology that the aliens could not even detect, much less understand. "Target eliminated, sir," reported Lieutenant Sam Brown from the weapons station. "No survivors, no evidence left behind," Chun nodded. This was how the war would begin. Not with massive battles or grand speeches, but with fear. The aliens would know that something was hunting them, but they would not know what. They would grow scared, make mistakes, and leave themselves open for the real attack. On a distant world called Kepler 7, Commander Rose Davis walked through the halls of an alien government building. To anyone watching, she looked like a perfectly normal Zephyrian official with gray scales and sharp teeth. But underneath her disguise, she was completely human. Rose had spent 20 years living among the aliens, learning their language, their customs, and their secrets. She knew which officials took bribes, which generals were cowards, and which planets had weak defenses. Most importantly, she knew exactly when and where the Confederation would be most vulnerable. Minister Colvas, she said to the large alien sitting behind an expensive desk, "I have the reports you requested about the missing ships." The alien minister was fat and lazy, like most Confederation officials. He had lived his whole life believing that the Zephyrians were the masters of the galaxy. The idea that anyone could threaten them was impossible for him to imagine. "What do your investigators think is happening?" Colvas asked as he ate something that looked like purple fruit. "Pirates, sir," Rose lied smoothly. "Well-organized pirates with stolen military equipment. We recommend increasing security patrols." In the outer systems, this was exactly what the humans wanted. When the aliens sent more ships to hunt for pirates, those ships would disappear too. The Confederation would spread their forces thin, trying to find an enemy they could not see or understand. Meanwhile, on the planet Victory Prime that had once been Earth, Supreme Overlord Kethmer was growing worried. He was the most powerful being in the galaxy, ruler of 7 species and 1,000 worlds. His palace stood where New York City had been, and from his window, he could see the spot where the last human resistance had fallen 3,000 years ago. Kethmer was not like his soft, lazy officials. He was old enough to remember the human war. He had been young then, just a minor commander, but he remembered how fiercely the humans had fought. Even when they were clearly beaten, they had kept fighting until the very end. "Bring me General Vexner," he ordered his guards. General Vexner was the Confederation's top military commander. He was smart, experienced, and loyal. When he arrived at the palace, Kethmer could see concern in his 4 eyes. "My lord," Vexner said, "we have lost contact with 17 outposts in the past 2 weeks. Our investigation teams find nothing but empty space where the stations used to be." Kethmer walked to his window and looked out at the alien city that covered his world. "What do you think is causing this?" he asked. "Unknown, my lord. Our enemies do not have this kind of technology. The rebels on the outer worlds are too weak and poorly equipped. This is something new." Something cold moved in Kethmer's chest. He had lived for over 3,000 years, and he had learned to trust his instincts. Right now, those instincts were telling him that something very dangerous was coming. "Colonel." Nick Foster watched from his command ship as another alien fleet moved into his trap. The aliens were finally responding to the attacks by sending large groups of warships to patrol their borders. This was exactly what General Williams had predicted they would do. "All ships, prepare for phase jump," Nick said into his communicator. "We hit them fast and hard, then disappear before they know what happened." Nick's fleet was invisible to alien sensors. They could appear anywhere, attack with weapons the aliens had never seen, and vanish before the enemy could fight back. It was not a fair fight, but after 3,000 years of exile, humans were not interested in fighting fair. The alien fleet consisted of 50 heavy warships, each one bigger than anything the old Earth had possessed. Their commanders felt safe and confident. They were wrong. Nick's ships materialized around the alien fleet like sharks surrounding fish. The human weapons fired beams of pure energy that could cut through any armor. Some alien ships simply vanished, destroyed so completely that not even atoms remained. Others were torn apart by forces that twisted space itself. The battle lasted exactly 4 minutes. When it was over, the alien fleet was gone, and Nick's ships had already jumped back into hyperspace. The only evidence that a battle had happened was a field of glowing particles that would soon fade away. Dr. Helen Wright sat in her laboratory on the command ship Retribution and listened to the intercepted alien communications. The enemy was starting to panic. Their military leaders were demanding answers that no one could give. Their politicians were blaming each other for the failures. "General Williams," Helen said into her communicator, "the aliens are taking the bait. They're pulling ships from Earth's defenses to hunt for us in the outer systems." Kate's voice came back immediately. "Excellent. How long before they realize what's really happening?" "Not long," Helen replied. "Supreme Overlord Kethmer is smarter than the others. He fought humans before. He might figure it out." "Then we better move fast," Kate said. "Signal all fleets. Begin Phase 2 of Operation Homecoming. It's time to show them what humans really look like when we're angry." Across the galaxy, the descendants of Earth's refugees prepared for the next stage of their war. They had spent 3,000 years becoming something the aliens could not imagine. Now it was time to come home. 3,000 years had passed since the Great Escape from Earth. The descendants of those brave families who fled in colony ships had built something amazing in the darkness between galaxies. General Kate Williams stood in the command center of the massive ship called Retribution and looked out at the fleet that surrounded her. The fleet was huge beyond imagination. Thousands of ships floated in perfect formation, each one bigger and more powerful than anything the old Earth had ever built. These were not the simple colony ships that had carried her ancestors to safety. These were weapons of war, built by people who had spent 30 centuries preparing for one thing. Going home and getting revenge. Kate was not like the humans who had fled Earth long ago. She was taller, stronger, and faster. Her eyes could see things that were very far away. Her mind could process information as quickly as a computer. She had lived for over 200 years and would live for hundreds more. The long exile in space had changed humanity in ways that even Dr. Lisa Barnes could never have imagined. "General Williams," said Dr. Paul Martinez as he walked into the command center. Paul looked young, maybe 30 years old, but Kate knew he was actually 150. Like all humans now, he had stopped aging when his body reached its peak. "The War Council is ready for your briefing." Kate nodded and followed Paul to the meeting room. Around a large table sat the leaders of humanity's return. These were the descendants of the children who had escaped Earth as babies. Now they were the generals, scientists, and strategists who would take back their homeworld. "My friends," Kate said as she stood at the head of the table, "today we finalize our plans for Operation Homecoming. Dr. Martinez, please tell us about our weapons." Paul stood up and activated a holographic display that showed various types of ships and weapons. "Our technology has advanced far beyond what the Zephyrian Confederation possesses," he said. "We can bend space and time itself. Our ships can become invisible or pass through solid matter like ghosts. Our weapons can tear holes in reality." He pointed to an image of a sleek black ship. "This is a phase destroyer. It can appear anywhere instantly and attack from multiple dimensions at once. The aliens won't even understand what hit them." Captain Rose Davis, who commanded the stealth fleet, leaned forward. "Our weapons are impressive, but I'm more excited about our intelligence operations. For the past 100 years, we've had agents living among the aliens. They think these agents are just normal members of their own species." She smiled, and Kate could see the pride in her eyes. "We can change our appearance, our DNA, even our scent to match any alien species perfectly. We've been watching them, learning from them, and when the time comes, we'll strike from within. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Johnson, head of military intelligence, opened a file on his tablet. The Confederation has grown weak and lazy, he said. They rule over 1,000 worlds, but they haven't fought a real war in 1,500 years. Their soldiers are soft. Their weapons are outdated. They believe they're the masters of the galaxy, but they're about to learn how wrong they are. Colonel Nick Foster, now an old man but still sharp as a knife, spoke up. What about Earth itself? What's our target looking like? Dr. Helen Wright, the fleet's chief strategist, activated another hologram. This one showed Earth, but it looked very different from the blue and green world their ancestors had known. Now it was covered with alien cities that gleamed like silver and gold. Earth has become the crown jewel of the Confederation, Helen said. They call it Victory Prime now. It's where their most important leaders live. The Supreme Overlord himself has a palace where the old city of New York used to be. Kate felt anger burn in her chest. The aliens had not only taken Earth, they had turned it into a monument to their victory over humanity. Perfect, she said. When we take it back, the entire galaxy will know that humanity has returned. Commander Amy Clark, descendant of the young lieutenant who had served with Captain Morrison, spoke for the first time. General, our people are ready. We've trained for this moment for 3,000 years. Every child born in exile has grown up knowing this day would come. Kate looked around the table at these brilliant, determined people. They were the children of refugees, but they had become something far more dangerous. They were the weapon that humanity had forged in the darkness of space. Dr. Martinez, Kate said, how long until our technology is ready for full deployment? We're ready now, Paul replied. Our factories have been producing ships and weapons for the past 50 years. We have enough firepower to conquer, not just the Confederation, but 10 confederations. Captain Ben Miller, who led the ground forces, stood up. My soldiers are eager to set foot on Earth again. We've trained in every type of combat, in every environment. We can fight in space, on planets, underwater, even inside stars if we need to. Kate smiled. These people were not just her military commanders. They were her family, connected by 3,000 years of shared exile and shared purpose. Their ancestors had fled Earth as desperate refugees. Now they would return as conquerors. There's one more thing, said Major Julie Parker, the fleet's communications officer. We've been monitoring alien transmissions for decades. They still tell stories about the humans they destroyed. They use us as an example of what happens to species that oppose them. She paused and looked directly at Kate. They have no idea that we survived. As far as they know, humanity is extinct. When we appear in their space, it will be like seeing ghosts. Kate stood up and walked to the window that looked out at the fleet. Each ship represented years of work, generations of planning, and the hopes of millions of humans who had been born in exile but dreamed of home. Then let's give them nightmares, she said. Begin final preparations. In 30 days, we jump to Confederation space. It's time to remind the galaxy that humanity is not so easy to kill. Around the table, her officers smiled. They had waited 3,000 years for this moment. The long exile was almost over. Soon they would go home. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his warship and watched the enemy fleet fill the dark space around Earth. The alien ships were huge and silver, shaped like spears that could cut through planets. There were thousands of them, maybe, more than Jake could count. His hands shook as he gripped the control panel. Sir, they're sending another message, said Lieutenant Amy Clark. She was young, maybe 25, with bright eyes that now looked scared. Jake had trained her himself. He wished he could tell her everything would be okay, but he couldn't lie to her now. Put it through, Jake said. His voice sounded calm, but inside his heart was beating fast. The main screen lit up with the face of Admiral Vextar, the leader of the alien fleet. The creature looked like a giant lizard with 4 eyes and teeth as sharp as knives. When it spoke, its voice was like metal scraping against stone. "Humans of Earth," Vextar said, "you have 1 hour to surrender. Give us all your weapons and technology. Your leaders will come with us as prisoners. Your people will work for the Zephyrian Confederation forever. If you refuse, we will burn your world until nothing lives." The screen went dark. Jake looked around at his crew. They were good people, brave people. They had families waiting for them back on Earth. But Jake knew they couldn't win this fight. The aliens had ships from 7 different worlds. Humans had been fighting in space for only 50 years. The aliens had been doing it for thousands. "Captain," said Commander Rick Hayes over the radio. Rick was Jake's oldest friend. They had grown up together in New York. "The other ships are ready. We'll fight with you until the end." Jake closed his eyes for a moment. He thought about his wife Sarah back on Earth. He thought about his little boy Tommy, who was only 3 years old. They would never see him again. But maybe they could live. Maybe Dr. Barnes could save them. 3 levels below the bridge, Dr. Lisa Barnes was running through the halls of her secret laboratory. She was a small woman with gray hair, but she moved like someone half her age. Behind her, a team of scientists was working faster than they had ever worked before. "How many ships are ready?" Lisa asked Dr. Paul Martinez as they reached the main control room. 250, Paul said. He was breathing hard. "Each one can hold 12,000 people. The engines are charged and the navigation systems are set." Lisa looked at the big screen that showed Earth from space. The planet looked so beautiful and peaceful. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown land. It was hard to believe that in 1 hour it might all be destroyed. "Are the families loaded?" she asked. "Yes," said Dr. Helen Wright. "Children first. Like you ordered. Then parents, then the essential workers. The ships are hidden on the far side of the moon. The aliens can't see them yet." Lisa nodded. Project Exodus had been her idea 5 years ago. She knew this day might come. Humans had found alien technology on Mars. They had learned to build faster ships and better weapons. But Lisa was smart. She knew that if aliens had left technology on Mars, it meant there were more aliens out there. Powerful ones. So she had built escape ships in secret. Not warships that could fight, but colony ships that could run far away and hide. If Earth fell, humanity could survive somewhere else. "Doctor," said a young scientist named Steve Johnson, "Captain Morrison is asking." "For you." Lisa took the elevator to the bridge. Jake looked tired. His uniform was wrinkled, and his hair was messy. When he saw her, he tried to smile. "Lisa, how much time do you need?" He asked. 30 minutes to get everyone loaded," she said. "Then 10 minutes for the ships to clear Earth's gravity and jump to hyperspace." Jake looked at the clock on the wall. They had 25 minutes before the aliens attacked. "I can give you that time," he said. "My fleet will keep their attention. We'll make them think we're preparing to fight." Lisa put her hand on Jake's shoulder. "You're a good man, Jake Morrison. History will remember you. If there's anyone left to write history," Jake said with a sad smile, "down on Earth, millions of people were running to the secret launch sites. Rose Davis carried her baby daughter, while her husband Ben helped their older son climb into the escape ship. Around them, other families were doing the same thing. Everyone was scared, but they moved quickly and quietly. Kate Williams, a young engineer, was checking the engines of ship number 47. She had designed these ships herself. They were not pretty or comfortable, but they could fly faster and farther than anything humans had ever built before. Each ship carried enough food, water, and equipment to start a new colony on a distant world. "All ships report ready," said Captain Nick Foster over the radio. He was in charge of the escape fleet. "Families are loaded. We're waiting for your signal, Dr. Barnes." Lisa looked at the clock again. 15 minutes until the aliens attacked. On her screen, she could see Jake's warships moving into formation. They looked so small compared to the alien fleet. "Begin launch sequence," Lisa said into her microphone. "All ships, this is Dr. Barnes. Take our people to safety. Find a new home. Remember Earth, but don't come back until you're strong enough to win." One by one, the colony ships lifted off from hidden bases around the world. They flew fast and low, staying behind Earth so the aliens couldn't see them. When they reached the moon, they turned on their special engines and disappeared into hyperspace. The last ship was just jumping away when Admiral Vextar's fleet opened fire. Jake Morrison and his brave crew fought back with everything they had. Laser beams filled the space around Earth with deadly light. Some alien ships exploded, but not many. One by one, the human warships were destroyed. Jake's ship was the last to fall. As the aliens closed in around him, he thought about his family. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, they were safe. Humanity would survive. Someday, maybe they would return. Admiral Vextar watched the burning remains of Earth's fleet float in space. "The human pest is eliminated," he said to his officers. "Divide their world among our people. Let this be a lesson to all who oppose the Confederation." But far away in the cold darkness beyond the galaxy, 250 ships full of angry humans were already planning their revenge.